Hello, everybody. I'm Eshan Pokhrel, and welcome back to the PB Political Podcast for episode number 19, where I will be recapping some of the biggest events that happened in the last week, both domestic and abroad in the political world. So, thank you. Make sure you guys leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts, and make sure you subscribe to PB Political AL on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. So I want to start with Liz Cheney here. Obviously, she's the representative from Wyoming. Wyoming only has one representative in the House of Representatives due to their population, and she represents the entirety. So Liz Cheney, son or daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, of the Bush administration in the 2000s. I believe George W. Bush. I always mix those up. But anyways, she's running from Wyoming. She's been the subject of much news lately as she's had a row with President Trump, voting against President Trump in the second impeachment back in 2021 after the January 6th riots. Cheney was one of the 10 Republicans who voted against President Trump and voted to impeach him from office, which obviously came to nothing and was largely ceremonial at that point due to him being President Biden being inaugurated 2 weeks after that impeachment vote. So anyways, Liz Cheney runs for re-election in Wyoming. Biggest challenger against her was Harriet Hageman, who was endorsed by President Trump, and Harriet Hageman won big. 66.3% of the votes went to Hageman. Hageman won all counties but Teton County, which is, as to my understanding, a more affluent county in the state of Wyoming. And Cheney came out of the election with 29% of the vote, 28.9% to be exact. And yeah, just not one of the worst showings for any of the anti-Trump meaning Republicans who voted against Trump during the impeachment trial. This is by far the worst one out of all of them. Cheney was also on the January 6th Commission, is on the January 6th Commission. I think she's one of the few Democrats or Republicans on the commission. I think one of two, I believe. Her and Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, who is also retiring. So he was another Republican that is either being forced out or choosing or feeling this is a convenient time, best time for his family, for himself to retire and withdraw from the public eye. So anyways, yeah, Liz Cheney loses her re-election bid, huge, to Harriet Hageman, who will more than likely become the next representative from Wyoming. And yeah, that happened last Tuesday. Shortly after this, Cheney hinted at running for president in 2024. We would assume, she didn't specify for sure, but we would have to assume as a Republican challenger to President Trump, which at this point, we've gotten to a point in, definitely on both sides, but I feel like in the Republican Party, there's no shot you can stand up to President Trump in a nationwide or in a primary and just come out on top if it's a 1v1 competition. Any Republicans that are against, that are anti-Trump, are likely to switch to independent or Democrat and vote into those at those primaries simply due to the divisive nature of the former president and his administration. So can Liz Cheney make a comeback in about a year or so and run for president and do well? It does not seem likely. However, it does seem likely that President Trump has consolidated his support in the Republican Party, especially after the raid at Mar-a-Lago in his residence in Florida. After people such as Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, the moderate governor, more of a suburban dad type feel, a little bit more moderate than President Trump. Governor Youngkin tweeted out support for President Trump in that time. And on the other side, Vice President Mike Pence also tweeted out his support for President Trump. And those two were being floated as potential contenders for the presidency if there was to be an open primary, which now, it just seems unlikely, given how President Trump has been able to capitalize on this media attention, to say the least, and he's been raising over $1 million a day in fundraising without even an official active campaign, which is just very, just incredible numbers for anybody, and probably will be one of the better numbers, maybe ever in presidential election and most in any electoral history. So Liz Cheney's out on the outs in Wyoming, and I just don't see if she has a future in the Republican Party. The Republican Party's, if it hadn't already, it is President Trump's stomping ground. Congresswoman Cheney voted with President Trump 93% of the time, yet she broke on impeachment and voted to impeach him, and that caused her downward spiral. She was one of the most consistent voters with President Trump, but even with that, she went against Trump in one of his worst moments. I think everyone can agree for sure, and she definitely paid the price politically, and I just don't see a comeback happening in 2 years. Maybe in the future, we'll see. I'm sure she'll keep popping up on TV. She'll keep popping up in the news from time to time. But yeah, just a little recap on the primary situation in Wyoming and how Liz Cheney is on the outs after one or two terms in Congress. Not sure how many exactly. Let me check real quick. Yes, 1 term in Congress. 2 terms in Congress, and now she's out. So, yeah, Liz Cheney's on the outs, and we'll be right back. Alright, and we're back. And next I want to talk a little bit about the Colorado River, specifically the drought that's been ongoing for it's been a while, but it's gotten worse in recent years, and just recently, the current they're calling it a mega drought. The current mega drought in the Colorado River Basin has gotten some worse news. So recently, the drought, which is already ongoing, obviously, tree ring records were uncovered that showed that a more severe drought had occurred in the 2nd century, so almost, 1,800 years ago. It was one of that drought that they found was the most severe drought in record history for that area, for the Colorado River area, the Southwest, and that's just a bad indicator for where things could get to in this current scenario. As it's been 22 years in this drought, there were thoughts of a bigger rain flood coming, or there were flood warnings happening in the Southwest, but even that could not be enough for water levels to get back to normal, as officials have been telling their citizens to start cutting your water use. Just try to conserve water. You don't things like watering plants, excessive showering. Those things don't need to be done, especially with the current conditions. So, yeah, the whole West is experiencing these conditions right now. And it's not just the Colorado River Basin, but the river basin has the worst. 90% of the state of New Mexico is in the 2 worst drought categories, as well as 60% of the state of California and 55% of the state of Nevada, which, to be fair, Nevada is mostly federal land, but there are still big population centers, obviously in Vegas, Reno, Carson City. So yeah, a lot of issues. California just had its driest 5 months on record, and this is really bad coming into wildfire season, which is we're approaching soon. So this could compound recent huge fires we've seen. This could also affect those in really bad ways. So yeah, just a small point to make here. A lot of people, I haven't seen a lot of news about this drought in the Southwest, but both the 2 largest reservoirs in the United States, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, are in historic lows brought on by this drought. Their inability to fill the river which snakes through the Grand Canyon. If you guys are a little confused about what the Colorado River is, it goes to the Grand Canyon, and really is a huge water source for the whole Southwest. I believe the Hoover Dam is also, the Colorado River also links to the Hoover Dam, so very big, very, very big water source for millions of people on the West Coast and the Southwest. So it's not good. The National Weather Service, again, they have flood watches coming, so they're hoping for flood-like conditions to maybe start easing a little bit of the drought conditions. Of course, it's obviously going to remain in drought conditions, but maybe to ease up a little bit of the water cuts and just catastrophe this will bring inevitably, especially with things like wildfires. It'll be hard for irrigation. It'll be bad for farming. So a lot of downstream effects from this drought, no pun intended, that need to be dealt with. That would be best served by not actually occurring, but also if it does occur, obviously need to be dealt with. And yeah, so the Colorado River, huge drought going on. Obviously, try to save water if you're out there listening. Hopefully it gets better, and we'll be right back. And finally today, I want to talk about Serbia and Kosovo, two Balkan states in Eastern Europe. So back in 2008, Kosovo split away from Serbia, and they do have very big differences in their population. For example, 92.9% of Kosovars are ethnically Albanian and 95% are Muslim, while 84% of Serbs are Orthodox Christians. So there's definitely a lot of conflict under the surface there. And recently, Serbia warned NATO that they would protect Serbians living in the state of Kosovo with any means necessary. A lot of these Serbs live in the North Territory of Kosovo, closer to the current Serbian border. NATO has sent around 4,000 peacekeepers, and they are ready to protect the freedom of movement for all sides of the conflict, as said by Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, Secretary General of NATO, that is. And all this stems from Pristina, the capital of Kosovo, announcing that Serbians living in the country need to start using car license plates made in Pristina or issued from Pristina, so Kosovan plates. And this was originally, right now this should already have been implemented, but Prime Minister of Kosovo, Albin Kurti, agreed to push the start of this program to September 1st after the United States and the European Union put pressure on the small nation. And a little bit more to this, China and Russia both are allies with Serbia, while Kosovo has a deep affinity for the United States and for the European Union. Kosovo wants to become a NATO member. Prime Minister Kurti met with Jens Stoltenberg after Serbian president, his name is Aleksandar Vučić, did a couple days ago. And so potentially conflict coming back to the region after the horrible wars in the 1990s between Bosnia, the Yugoslav wars between Bosnia, which led to the breakup of the Yugoslav Republic, obviously, but with Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, all of them were affected. And this could be the start of something else. We hope not, obviously, but the whole world should be on alert just a little bit, just watching this conflict, because this has the issue. This could be a proxy war type S conflict if any conflict is broken. As Serbia and China and Russia are aligned fairly heavily, and Vučić has a little bit of more of an authoritarian streak in him, while Kosovo tries to align themselves with the United States and European Union, setting themselves up for a showdown if need comes to be. But hopefully we don't get to that stage. And with that, just to touch on that subject a little bit, just keep an eye out for it, I guess, in the future. Those are 3 stories I wanted to cover this week. Again, Cam couldn't be here this week, but we hope that we'll both be in here. We'll be back next Monday with most likely not a guest. Looks like we're going to have to wait a couple weeks, but definitely some more content. You can find more of us at the PB Political Podcast anywhere you can listen to podcasts. Also on Instagram at PB Political Podcast, as well as Big PB Political. So PB Political AL on everything, social media, and pbpolitical.com on the website, or for the website. Check that out. We got great content from great writers. So check all that out. Should tell your friends, leave us a 5-star review, all that. Thank you. I'm Eshan Pokhrel, and goodbye.